All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. This is going to be a brand new presentation. Sometimes we'll shake things up and add some new stuff to the mix. A quick shout out to my mom, Shirley Bohm. She's on this particular program in the audience. She helps me often do the outline and start the presentations, and then I flesh things out, move things around, and shake it up a little bit and make it look good. So she's my partner in crime, and she helps me a good deal with these. So thank you so much. I appreciate her. She's been a master gardener since 2011. So that's one of the good things that you can do. So if you're a master gardener, uh, we've got lots of speaker bureau opportunities for you. Just reach out to your coordinator if you're in a different county. If you're in Gwinnett, you can definitely reach out to me. We've got a lot of opportunities available. So I should have everybody muted by now. If I haven't muted you, go ahead and mute yourself. And standard protocol, if you have questions about anything that kind of pops into your head as I'm going through the presentation, feel free to just go ahead and drop that into the chat box, whatever your question is, and I will get to it at the end of the presentation. That way we can make sure that I get through everything. I appreciate any and all questions. And even if you have a question that doesn't necessarily pertain to this particular presentation, I am happy to answer those as well. So there's a lot of interest in hydrangeas, obviously. Everybody loves them, and enough interest that it makes sense to have a hydrangea specific presentation. So in this particular presentation, we're going to go through all sorts of good information about hydrangeas, what kinds they are, what kind of growing conditions you need, specifics of color change. I know there's a lot of interest in that. A lot of people kind of wonder how you can do that. Um, you know, where they kind of started, I guess, where they were imported from, that kind of thing. And hopefully I will be able to answer all of your questions with this presentation. There's a lot of interesting and really good stuff in here to unpack, and I am recording. So with most of my presentations, I record them and then I will put them on the Metro Master Gardener YouTube channel. So if you want to watch this again, and there should be only, I think, one QR code in here. If you want to check that out later, it should go up. I didn't get the other two up there. They need a little bit of editing. So this one will go up. I'll probably do that tomorrow. Hopefully this will be available by the end of day on Friday tomorrow. If not, then probably by early next week. All right, so let's go ahead and start. So some fast facts about hydrangeas. There are 6 types that are typically grown here in North America. If you look at the sources, some of them say like 49 to 75 different species. It really kind of depends on the source you're looking at. There's all sorts of different cultivars. Obviously, it's a very beloved plant. So a lot of the big plant companies out there have really taken it upon themselves to just dive in and try to make as many cultivars as possible. Cultivars being all the different colors, flower shapes, anything and everything that you can possibly think about with variation on these particular plants. They can be anywhere from 3 foot tall up to 20 foot tall, and anywhere in between. Most of them are going to need fairly moist, well-drained soil. They don't want soggy feet, which that's, a given. They also need at least 3 to 4 hours of sun. Here in the South, if you're new to the South, when it says full sun, it probably means part sun. That would mean full sun in the morning and then probably afternoon shade. We have a pretty intense sun down here, so you really don't want to cook your hydrangeas. And I've seen some folks, there are a couple different types of hydrangeas that can tolerate a good bit of sun, some not as much, but generally speaking, they're going to need some sun, but preferably not that afternoon sun. They can tolerate a little bit more in northern climates, specifically the panicle hydrangeas. They can tolerate full sun in the northern climates like Minnesota, New York, that kind of thing. All hydrangeas are going to undergo some color change. A lot of folks get really excited about that. They'll go buy something that maybe one of the big leaf that's pink in the store. They bring it home, they stick it in the soil here, another year later, and it's no longer pink. And they get frustrated, and we'll get calls about that. So we'll talk about that. You can see we have, I believe that's an oak leaf, maybe a panicle in there, but there is some color change that happens. They might take on a rosy tinge, might take on a little blue tinge, but really the only two that are going to have an actual color change to them that you can control are going to be the big leaf and the mountain hydrangeas. You can change the flower color depending on some chemical processes. All hydrangeas are going to contain a chemical called hydrangean that is actually toxic to humans, pets, and other animals. So try to keep your pets from munching on them and eating them. That includes chickens. If you have chickens, if you're new to owning chickens, they love to eat hydrangea leaves, but that's not safe for them. So please exclude them from that area or move that bush. When the leaves and the flowers are ingested, it basically breaks down into hydrogen cyanide, which is not good. So we don't want to hurt our animals. So just please keep that in mind. All right, so let's dive in. What kind of hydrangea do you have? Some of you may know, some of you may have a love of hydrangeas and have really dived in to get all of that good information, but some of you may not know, and that is perfectly fine. That's why we have a program like this, so that you can learn what you have. So there are basically 6 types that you're going to see here. The first type is going to be a panicle hydrangea, paniculata, and that's going to be kind of a conical type flower. So conical meaning cone, obviously. And those flowers can take on a pinky or reddish tinge. They're going to bloom on new wood. That's also another thing that we get calls about. Why do I not have any flowers on my hydrangea? And it usually turns out they're either getting too much shade or they've pruned them when they shouldn't have. So this is going to help you learn when you should and shouldn't prune, how much sun, that kind of thing. So these guys bloom on new wood, and so you're going to prune those in late winter, early spring. So when you start seeing buds, that's basically when you're going to do that. They like full sun up in the northern climates, part shade down here in the south in zones 8 and 9, where the sun is more intense. They also are known as PG hydrangeas. So if you've heard them called that, that's what they are. Next up, smooth. So this is Hydrangea arborescens, and this is going to be white, pink, or green flowers. They're kind of globe shaped, but they're not huge. They're going to bloom on new wood also. So again, prune late winter, early spring, full sun to part shade. But here again in the south, it's going to be more part shade. And these are also known as Annabelle hydrangeas, if you've heard that. Next up, oak leaf. These are one of my favorites. I have these all over my yard. They're native. They're very tough. They can tolerate a lot of drought once established. And these are going to be white conical flowers, kind of very large oak leaf type shaped leaves. They're going to bloom on old wood. Okay, so don't prune in the spring. They don't need a lot of winter protection. They are, like I said, very tough once established. And again, full sun, part shade. So down here, part shade. Up in the northern climates, full sun. Next up are going to be the climbing hydrangea, or the Hydrangea petalularis. And these are going to be like white disc-shaped flowers. So I know a couple of master gardeners actually have some of these. They climb up the exterior of your house or your tree. They're going to be kind of something that needs support. Okay, so not your typical hydrangea. I don't see them all over the place, but they are a pretty flower. They do have a pretty flower, but it's not your typical hydrangea. These guys bloom on old wood. So again, don't prune in the spring, and part shade. Mountain hydrangeas, so pink, red, purple, or blue flowers. These are one of these types of hydrangeas that you can change the color on. They're going to be blooming on old wood. So again, don't prune in the spring. Full sun, part shade. Same old, same old. In the south, you're going to go part shade. Up in the north, it's more sun. Big leaf. These are the most classic hydrangeas that everybody thinks of when you think of a hydrangea. These guys are going to be pink, red, purple, or bluish colors, or a mixture of all of those on the same plant, kind of depending on the soil. And they bloom on old wood, so don't prune in the spring. And you might benefit from some winter protection because some of the buds can be a little sensitive. Again, full sun, part shade, depending on what part of the country you're in. And these are also known as mop head hydrangeas, lace cap hydrangeas, florist or hortensia, okay? But these are your typical hydrangeas that you see a lot in florists' displays. So if you're still not sure what kind of hydrangea you have, that's perfectly fine. That's why they have charts like this. So you can basically just kind of look at the flower and look at, is it a ball shape? Does it have kind of a lacy flat cap? Is it a cone? So figure that out and then look at the leaf shape, pointed oak leaf, medium or vine, small, blue, white, purple, all of that. You can kind of go through this if you're still not sure and you want to know. Once this is up and running on the Metro Master Gardener YouTube channel, you can come back here and you can go through this and figure it out. Make sure that what you're doing is you're looking at least a plant that's 3 to 4 years old. But most of these hydrangeas are going to follow this guideline. So you should be able to key this out and figure out what you have. All right location to plant hydrangeas. So again, site should have at least up to about 4 hours of morning sun. And this is all going to be for pretty much in the metro Atlanta area, so the metro area. So preferably morning sun. I know some people have planted them in full shade, and a lot of times they don't do well. You just don't see the flowers that you're hoping for because they're not getting enough sun. So yes, they do need some sun. So if you can plant them where they're getting up to about 4 hours, so maybe up to about noon or so, 11 o'clock or noon, that's great. And then shade in the afternoon. North or east facing sites, because that's obviously where the sun rises. The sun's not going to be as intense as if it's a southern facing. So you've got kind of that sweet spot in there. You have to kind of realize that if you do too much sun, you're probably going to burn the plant. It's going to be stressed and it's not going to flower as much. Not enough sun, and you've got the same problem. Most people know you need fairly well-drained soil that's not going to be holding water too much. They don't like wet feet. They just don't. So if you're trying to amend and put in a new grouping of these plants in a fairly new yard or a new area, make sure that you go in and amend the soil. You're going to add some compost, maybe put a little peat moss or some sand in there to add for drainage. That's very important. So they do like a pH range of about 5.5 to about 6.5. So a little bit less than most typical plants, probably more what you would expect from, say, blueberries or gardenias or azaleas or something like that. Adjusting the soil pH can change the flower color for some varieties, not all of them, just a few, and we'll go into that in a little bit later here. So if you have the big leaf or you have the mountain and you want to try to change up that color of that flower, a soil test is going to be your friend. We do those here at Extension. Pretty easy to do. It'll give you the pH of what it is, and the lab will also tell you what kind of nutrients you need to add, what kind of fertilizer, that kind of thing, to that soil in order to get the plant to look really nice and beautiful and have the color that you want. So just also kind of keep in mind that size matters. So some hydrangeas can grow up to 20 feet tall. I will tell you, oak leaf hydrangeas, they are beautiful, very beautiful. They're also very unwieldy and they will grow over 20 feet tall. I have several that are taller than that. And they're just crazy. They will stretch for light. So if you don't give them enough light, they will get hugely tall. So just keep that in mind when you're choosing the type of hydrangea you want. Planting them. Okay, so just like every other plant, the best time is fall or spring. Fall is great because we're starting to cool down. The soil temperature is still nice and warm. The air temperatures are dropping, and you have quite a while for that root system to really get established and do well. You may have to water because it's dry here in the fall sometimes, but that's fine. Spring is also okay if you get it in there early enough. Make sure you are watering. You need to do that just like any other plant. Not too much. You don't want to do it every day, probably every other day, every third day, unless you're getting rain. Make sure that root ball is nice and soaked. It'll wilt, so it will tell you that it needs water, but as that temperature increases as we move into summer, make sure you are babying that plant because you need it to establish. As anything else, dig that hole about twice the width of whatever pot size you're dealing with. Loosen up those roots, just like every other plant that you're planting. Put that in the ground so that root ball is level with about the top of that soil, and then just kind of refill and pack around there. You may want to scratch in a good 10-10-10 fertilizer, or you can get fertilizers specific for hydrangeas. So fertilizing. A good slow release, all purpose, just a 10-10-10. That's usually recommended for both vegetables and for your trees and other things out there. That soil test will tell you what you need for certain, though. And you're going to want to take that fertilizer and put it around the drip line. Don't just put it right on the ball, but put it around the drip line because that's where those roots are going to grow out. And as those roots grow out, they'll be able to, those feeder roots will be able to access that fertilizer. You're going to want to avoid that high nitrogen. So you have, of course, those three numbers, that 10-10-10, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Phosphorus is great for the root system. That nitrogen, or that first number, is going to be for the green growth. So if you have some leftover lawn fertilizer and you dump that on there, just know you're probably going to get a lot of leaves, but you're not going to get a lot of flowers. So just, know what those three numbers are there for. And also fertilizing more frequently can slow that bloom production down. So you don't want to over fertilize. We try to tell people those soil tests are great for this because you know exactly what you need. You're not putting more fertilizer on there than you need, wasting money, having that fertilizer get off into the lakes and the rivers. And, more is not better. So it's always better to know what you actually need. And often you can actually get fertilizer that's combined with a pH adjuster. So you can see here you've got aluminum sulfate, and that's going to be a good one in this case. Watering, keep them moist. A lot, the big leaf especially, will wilt when they are needing water. They do use a lot more water versus oak leaf. I've got some oak leaf that are nice and established. I hardly ever have to water them except for like now when it's been very super hot. You're going to want to water at ground level, and that goes for every hydrangea type because they are susceptible to leaf spot. It's really hard to get rid of once you have it, and you don't want to introduce it if you can help it. So make sure when you're watering, keep that at ground level so that you can help that root system. And obviously root rot, that's going to go with any plant. You don't want to give them more water than they need. So make sure you're on a regular watering schedule, about an inch and a half of water a week. So just get yourself a little rain gauge, put that out there. That'll be your friend. And just kind of keep an eye. So if we have a really wet summer and you do end up with leaf spot, like cercospora, and again, that'll come up later on in the presentation. If you get a fungal leaf spot at the end of the summer, when you move into fall and it starts to drop its leaves, you're going to have a real big need for garden hygiene. So you're going to rake all of those leaves and get them out of there. That's going to help you later on so that you're not reinfecting that particular bush. And we'll talk about that again. All right. So when and how to prune. We'll go through more of this specifically, but again, I'm just trying to tell you all again so that you can kind of remember the old wood and the new wood. It's a hard one to remember, especially if you have a bunch of different hydrangeas on your property, but the rules are there and you can always refer back to this. There's also a really good cheat sheet, and I'll share that QR code a little bit later. That's with proven winners. I love that cheat sheet. I share that with a lot of people. So basically, when you're pruning, you don't always have to prune, okay? But if you do, know what you have. So identify what you have first. So we went through that. We had that little key that you could kind of figure out what you have: mountain, smooth, big leaf, all of that. Figure out the types that you have. Next up, you're going to have to decide when you prune that. And so pruning hydrangeas on old wood, those are going to be all oak leaves, big leaf hydrangeas that aren't rebloomers, and there are some that are rebloomers, and mountain hydrangeas that are not rebloomers. Pruning reblooming hydrangeas, those are going to be the reblooming varieties of big leaf and mountain. And then pruning hydrangeas on new wood, those are all the smooth hydrangeas and all the panicle hydrangeas. So, the rules are hard and fast. Obviously, if you prune the wrong way, you're just not going to have many or any blooms that year, but know that the next year you will. So, as long as shade's not an issue. Also know how much to prune. So really, unless you're going to do a renewal prune, and a renewal prune means that it's gotten really big and unwieldy, you're hacking it down to maybe 18 inches or 2 feet because you want it to kind of shrink in size. So obviously it's not going to bloom that year. But if you're just doing some minor pruning to shape and bring the size down a little bit, don't take it off any more than about a third or 30%. That's going to change the framework of the plant, and you're going to end up with fewer blooms, obviously, and that will be very noticeable because you're going to be taking off so much. So try to stay below that 30% threshold. General pruning, just like with any other tree or bush, dead limbs can be removed at any time. We usually tell folks, if you have questions about whether it's alive or dead, do that scratch test. You can see that up in the top left corner. Scratch it. If it's green, it's probably still alive. If it's brown, it's probably not. And you can just go down that branch until you find the green. If you have limbs that are rubbing like this, that have grown crosswise, you want to remove one of those, generally the smaller one, because that can promote entry for pests, either fungal issues or for insects, that kind of thing. To reshape some of those, big leaf, oak leaf, or the climbing that bloom on old wood, prune off those spent blooms down to that first leaf of growth in July, and then no more. And next year, you will have blooms. To reshape the panicle or the smooth that bloom on new wood, cut back in the fall or winter after the leaves drop, but before they really start growing. And then, there's some of the fancy new cultivars like Endless Summer. Those are reblooming. They're going to bloom on new and old. So August 1 is going to be your cutoff for that. You don't want to do any pruning after that. And that's going to encourage some additional growth after, and hopefully another bloom. Blooming on new wood. Okay. So you'll hear this over and over again. And my hopes is that if you've identified what type of hydrangea you have, you now will know when you should be able to prune that so that you still get flowers. So blooming on new wood, flower buds formed on that new growth that sprouts out in the spring, okay? And then they bloom in the summer. So again, panicle and smooth hydrangeas. The buds are less susceptible to freeze or winter damage because they haven't emerged yet. So those those are going to be pruning. I think that's wrong. Oh well, oops. You're going to make that cut about a fourth above in a pair of leaves. Pruning late fall, early winter, early spring before growth appears. So you can see in that top left picture, you've got an old bloom there. You've got some emergence of leaves in the spring. So you're going to cut that, and then the new flower head is going to erupt above that. Pruning hydrangeas that bloom on old wood. So the buds are already formed that previous fall, spring, so, or sorry, that previous summer. I hit every single season in there. But don't prune after August 1st because it's already been set. So those are going to be like your big leaf, your oak leaf, your climbing, and your mountain hydrangeas. If you prune these varieties in the fall or winter, early spring, you're going to cut off the buds and you just won't have very many, if any, blooms. So I usually tell people, I mean, unless there's a real reason why you're trying to really prune back the size of a hydrangea, just kind of let it do its thing. Let the size get kind of rambling. No need to really just hack it back. And if you just really don't know and you don't want to worry about it, then once it's set its buds and you can see it, then you can go back in and remove the dead blooms from the previous summer, and you have your answer. That's the easier, lazy gardening way. All right, propagating. So everybody wants to know, how do I make more of these? Because we've all gone to the store, you go to the nursery and you pick up that beautiful pot and you look at the price tag and you almost gag. They're really expensive. They're very pretty, but they're very expensive. So how do you make more of those so you can save some money? Well, there's actually ways of doing that. So a lot of these I do need to make a point and say that a lot of these are patented plants like Endless Summer, but there are others. I think it's Little Lime. Little Lime is now, I think, off patent. So you can propagate that, but just be aware that a lot of these are patented. You're not supposed to do that. But if they're not, you have older heritage varieties, you can divide those. So you can either do it the old fashioned way, dig one up, you can separate it that way. Or you can try layering the hydrangeas that bloom on old wood. So that's pretty easy. I do a lot of that with my oak leaf hydrangeas. I just take one of the branches, I'll lay that down. You can put a rock over the top of it. And then you could dig like a shallow trench so there's good contact between the soil and the branch. Scrape a little bit off that branch to kind of start the process, and then just put that rock over it and you can kind of walk away from it. And then usually by the end of summer, you'll have some roots that have started to grow. So you can come by and test it, take that rock off and tug on a little bit. And when it sticks or it's not coming up, that's a good indication that you have a root system. I have a little secret. Some of you know about it, but some of you may not. These things are awesome. I love plastic rooting balls. They are super cheap. You can get them off Amazon. Usually there's a clear side and a opaque side or a plastic side that you can't see. But what you do is you get two sides. You can see the one that I just showed you there. You put a little peat moss in there. If you just got some potting soil, that works too. You're just gonna take it, you're gonna clip it around, just pop it on there and clip it, close it on that branch, and just forget about it. Make sure that you have, and you can see on this one, there's an area for the branch to go through, and then a lot of times they'll have, it'll go both ways. So you'll have two axes, and then you'll have holes on all four sides. So you get some rainwater that can get in there, or you're going to go through and water them periodically. But after the summer, you can go through and look. That's why a lot of them have a clear side, and you can see the root system has started to form. So at that point, you just clip it underneath at the base, and then you've got a root ball already formed, and you can go plant it and then have it start growing, and then you've got a new plant. So you could buy these super cheap off Amazon. That's where I've seen them. And you just call it a plastic rooting ball. You can usually get like a pack of 12. They'll have some small ones, some large ones. And so by the end of the summer, you could have a whole bunch of plants if you wanted to do that. So I've actually got two out there on one of my oak leaves right now where I'm trying to grow them on branches that are in the way, and I don't really want them there, but I'm like, hey, I'm not going to waste them, right? Next up, taking softwood cuttings from non-flowering green shoots. Okay, so you're going to make a cut just below a leaf node, and this works on oak leaves, but you can also do this on big leaf, any hydrangea really. You're going to keep that cutting moist, so that's why they're in a glass of water there, because you need to make sure that you have an open vascular system there. You're going to dip that cutting and rooting hormone. So get yourself a little container of rooting hormone, tamp a little bit off onto some aluminum foil or something, and then you're going to dip it in rooting hormone. And then you're going to have a little pot set up. Remove or cut back those leaves because you don't want that little cutting to try to put all that effort into those leaves. So just cut it back so that there's just minimal leaf, and then put a plastic bag over it. You can put the whole thing into a plastic bag, or you can do like you see here where you've got some shish kebab skewers that are holding up that plastic bag. And that's going to act like a little mini greenhouse. And so you can come by after, 10 days, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, tug on it a little bit. When you feel the resistance, it's starting to root. Keep it moist, and soon you'll have another hydrangea plant. So you can have a whole bunch of them. All right. We get this question a lot. This is probably one of the most popular questions. Failure to flower. Why am I not getting flowers on my hydrangeas? Usually it's going to be one of these reasons. So winter injury, maybe we had a cold snap, and some of those that set buds on old wood got nipped. Same reason why you wouldn't get a big peach crop or a blueberry crop or anything like that. If it happens at the wrong time, those buds get nipped, you're not going to get any blooms. Sometimes they're in shade too much. If they're only getting an hour of sunlight or less, they're not getting enough sun. They need sun. They need at least 3 or 4 hours of sun in order to make those flowers. Think of it as photosynthesizing. That plant needs that to go through that process of photosynthesizing to make that energy to make those blooms. So if there's not enough sun, I'm not going to do that. Too much nitrogen fertilizer. It puts more energy into growing those leaves than it does into producing those flowers. That first number, that nitrogen, that goes for growth. That second number, phosphorus, that goes more for root growth and some flowers. So make sure that you're not using that leftover lawn fertilizer. And pruning at the wrong time of year. That is probably the biggest reason. Somebody told them that they should prune their hydrangea in the fall, and it's actually one that blooms on new wood, or vice versa. That's usually the reason. So these are going to be the main reasons why you're not getting blooms. And this is the cheat sheet that I was telling you about. So hydrangeas demystified. This is usually we try to provide publications from an educational source, but I love how easy this is to read. So I actually send this link out quite often. Hydrangeas demystified. The last version was a little prettier, but this is perfectly fine. I love the little key that they provide you here. Just like with the other one, what kind of hydrangea do I have? This will help you determine why it's not blooming. So you can see once you've identified what you have and you know what kind of hydrangea, you just follow it down. Like for instance, smooth or panicle. How long ago did you plant it? Less than 2 years? More than 2 years? Less than 2 years? It needs more time to develop a root system. So it's putting its energy into its root system. Or more than 2 years? How much light does it get? Less than 4 hours? Needs more sun. More than 4 hours. Did you cut it? Yes. When? Late spring, fall, and then it takes you down to, maybe some deer ate the buds were removed, so on and so forth. So this is a really good and easy way to kind of figure out why it's not blooming. And I've already sent this link like 4 times this year, this spring, because people have been asking me, why is it not blooming? So you can always go back and grab this later. If you didn't get it now, it'll be on the Metro Master Gardener YouTube channel. All right, flower color facts. Okay, so let's dive into big leaf hydrangeas and mountain hydrangeas and why you can alter the color. So some people are like, oh, it's the pH. Well, it is, but it's also dependent on aluminum, believe it or not. Aluminum is not a macro or micronutrient that the plants need, but it is something that will alter the color if it's present in the soil. It alters the color based on the pH. So There's a little bit of chemistry here. Bear with me. I'm not going to go too deep into it. Hopefully, it will be fairly easy to understand, and I'm not going to blow your head up with chemistry. I know there have been a few presentations where I've done some chemistry, but again, I'm not going to blow your head up with it. So know that certain varieties of the big leaf hydrangeas cannot change their color. Yes, there's always a few outliers that don't, but mostly it's going to be your big leaf and your mountain. It is easier to change a hydrangea from pink to blue than from blue to pink because you're altering the pH, and based on some chemical changes in the soil here, buffering capacity, some other stuff, it can be more difficult to kind of shift it back towards pink than it can be to shift it to blue. Blue is what we're going to typically see here in the Atlanta area based on our soil chemistry. If you get upwards of Tennessee and Kentucky, you're going to probably see more pink. I'll explain why. So just know hydrangeas that have already bloomed pink this year, if you've decided you want to try to shift it back to what you got it from the nursery, like if it came pink, you're probably not going to see that until next year. Okay. It takes a while for that process to happen. So just know that if it's blooming now, you're not going to be able to tweak the soil chemistry and get those pink blooms this year. It'll be for next year. Also, the old wives' tale, pennies, nails, aluminum foil, coffee grounds, that kind of stuff. Maybe Grammy told you that you could use those to change the color, but that's not the case. There are ways you can do that. Don't do that here. It's not really gonna work. All right. All right, changing the flower color. Okay, so here we're gonna dive into pH a little bit and the nutrients. So you can see here that I have the pH scale, 7 being neutral, 4 to 7 being acidic, and 7 to 10 being alkaline or basic. And then you see all of the nutrients, not all of them are on there, but these are going to be your macro and secondary macronutrients in the order that they need them, the level that they need them. And I like this stoplight. I can get this particular infographic in other colors or styles, but I like this one because it makes me think of a stoplight. Stop, warning, go is for green is for go. And that works really well here because you can kind of see where nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, calcium, magnesium, all of those are most what we call bioavailable. And that's going to be roughly around 7. Sometimes a little more than that, sometimes a little less than that. Most plants need that pH to be right, probably 6.2, 6.8, somewhere in there. There are some that prefer more acidic. It's going to be like blueberries, azaleas, camellias, things like that. They prefer it a little bit further, maybe down to 5.5, give or take. And then there are some like cherry trees that do actually they prefer it a little bit higher than 7, so maybe up to 7.5. So it really depends on the plant, but generally speaking, the rule of thumb is 6.2 to 6.8. And you can see where those elements are most bioavailable based on the pH. So flower color for hydrangeas is going to depend on soil pH and aluminum. Again, aluminum is not a plant nutrient. And at elevated levels, it can actually be toxic to a plant because it's going to limit that plant's ability to take up phosphorus, which remember, NPK, phosphorus is a macronutrient. You can see it up at the very top underneath nitrogen. It's going to reduce the solubility. So you don't want to put too much in there, okay? Again, to try to determine if you want to fiddle around with the color of your hydrangeas, get that pH from a soil test. So whether you go down to Home Depot and get yourself a little pH test, or you actually do one through us at Extension, figure out what your pH is. To change that flower color from pink to blue, you're going to add wettable sulfur or aluminum sulfate. Available, I would just say buy it online. You can buy stuff online so much easier now. To change that flower color from blue to pink, dolomitic limestone takes about 6 to 12 months, believe it or not. So I did say it took a little bit longer to do that. And that is because here we typically have a more acidic soil. That's just what we have here, and that's the geology of this area. Whereas like up in Tennessee or Kentucky, you have actually a limestone base. So that's why the flowers are going to be more pink up there than they are down here. But you can get that. You just have to be patient. And there's just so you can see where the plants prefer the pH. Soil test. All right, a little bit more about soil pH, acidity and alkalinity, and affecting the availability of aluminum to the plants. So aluminum is going to be transported to those roots in a hydrangea much more easily in acidic soil. So 5.5 or lower, giving you those blue flowers. And here's aluminum down here. You see all of the other nutrients. I had to dig for this particular one because, as I mentioned, it's not a nutrient for plants, but it is utilized. And then when the soil is alkaline, here's where you're going to see where the blue. And then when the soil is alkaline or 7 or higher, the roots are less able to transport that aluminum. So the flowers are going to be pink. So again, up in Tennessee and Kentucky and areas that have limestone as a base, or even down into Florida, you'll have limestone in there. It's less able to transport that aluminum. So you're going to have the pink flowers. So you can see down there on the bottom, I've got aluminum highlighted in yellow, and then you see the scale. You see the pink flowers above, and then the blue flowers below. And then in the middle, you get purple. So you can see the two plants on either side here. The pink one on the right, you can actually see some of the purple flowers that are kind of popping up in there as it's changing. So that neutral soil will actually give you a purplish or a lavender color flower. So now you know the secret of how you actually do that if you want to do that. All right, now we're going to move into some of the diseases and pests, and then we'll talk a little bit about the individual ones themselves. I'm going to speed up a little bit here because we only have about 15 minutes left. So diseases and pests, there are quite a few. I mentioned leaf spot, and some of the fungal issues. You'll have powdery mildew, which you can see in the top right. Powdery mildew is on a lot of things, and it's very humid here, so you might see that a lot in your garden, not just in your vegetables, but also in your ornamentals and your bushes and woody ornamentals. Anthracnose, you'll get the leaf spot and cercospora. You can see the two there that are showing up. They look a little bit different. Cercospora is going to give you that rounded spot with kind of a gray interior. It's on a lot of hydrangeas. Don't panic if you see it. It's very endemic here. It's not going to kill your plant. It's just part of, being here. It's cercospores on a lot of different stuff. This is where garden hygiene comes in. Make sure you rake those leaves. If you had a bad bout of it, make sure you just get them out, throw them away, get them out of there. That'll help with reinfection because next year we might have a cooler summer and it's not as big of an issue. Anthracnose, you get large brown areas of the leaves. Again, not necessarily going to kill your plant, but obviously garden hygiene and pruning out some of those is a good idea. Get them off the property, throw them away. Just you don't want them there anymore. Aphids are a problem on a lot of different plants. They'll congregate on the new growth. They'll suck the juices. You might have that honeydew, and then you get the powdery mildew. So that's where that comes in. And spider mites, they're going to cluster on the underside of those leaves. You might see some webbing. You'll get some stippling on there because they're going to pierce and suck those juices out. And then the Japanese beetles or the rose chafer beetles, usually late June is when you see them. They'll eat everything. A little hand vacuum is nice. And then if you have chickens, you can feed them to the chickens. They love that. All right, types of hydrangeas. We're going to blow through these. So these are all of the hydrangeas, the 6 types that I talked about before. And this is a little bit more into what they are. So they're going to grow 6 to 10 feet. These are the big leaves. These are the ones that make the purple, the blue, or the pink blooms. except for, and there are a few in there that don't, but also known as French Japanese snowball, mophead lace cap hydrangeas, depending on the variety. Soil pH with aluminum is going to determine your color. These particular ones wilt very easily. They do need that 4 hours of sunlight, but make sure they get that afternoon shade. Keep them moist. And these guys are going to bloom on old wood. Again, big leaf hydrangeas, mop heads. Here you can see a couple more varieties. Lace caps, very pretty. I've seen some gorgeous ones. Pink or blue, you pick, depending on what effort you want to put into it. Oak leaf, my favorite. I love oak leaves. They grow taller than 7 to 8 feet. These guys can get like 20 feet. Natives to Georgia, I have a ton of these on my property, very easy to propagate. Soil pH is not going to affect these, so you don't have to worry about that as much. They look like oak leaves, and you get some really pretty fall color. So the more sun these things receive, the more beautiful oranges and reds and yellows you're going to have in your fall colors. Just know that. If they're in a rather sheltered area with not a lot of sun, you're probably not going to see as much fall color, but they are beautiful in the fall. They're going to flower on old wood, so make sure that you're not pruning after August 1st. They are actually pretty tolerant of sunshine. My mom actually has one in front of her house, and it gets a pretty good bit of sunshine. And it does have a lot of beautiful fall color, but it's a pretty good size. It doesn't need as much water as most other hydrangeas, which is great if you are a neglectful gardener like I tend to be. I get kind of busy and I don't always get out there and water like I should. But once they're established, you don't have to give them as much care as some of the others. These guys will slowly spread. So just keep in mind wherever you put them in the back of something because they're going to grow very tall and they will move a little bit. And they spread by suckering. So you can also dig those up and move those and have new bushes, as well as the air layering with the little root ball that I was showing you. Panicle hydrangea. So these can grow tall, 15 to 20 feet, so as tall as the oak leaf. They're going to be pretty cold hardy, so you'll see a lot of these up north, and they're very tolerant of sun. So as I drive into work on Highway 20, there's a subdivision, and they have these planted out front in full sun. They get a little wilty because it's been kind of dry, but overall they're blooming and they're doing fairly well. So if you need something that's going to be able to tolerate more sun, or you just don't have morning sun, these should be able to do better in your yard. They're going to bloom on new wood, so springtime. So you're actually going to prune these guys in late winter, early spring. And again, soil pH is not really going to affect the color here. They're going to change depending on the species, but the cooler temperatures can trigger a bit of flower color from white to pink. And that'll happen sometimes on your oak leaves as well. Smooth hydrangea, these 5, 6, 7 feet tall. They're good southern growers because they can tolerate a little bit more heat, and they are somewhat cold tolerant. So up in the mountains, they'll do pretty good. It's a fairly compact native hydrangeas. Sometimes you see these along with some of the mountains. You might actually see them growing semi-wild, not named cultivars, of course, out in the woods. Or in areas around streams or around a pond if you have one. These are going to bloom on new wood. So again, you don't want to well, you can prune them later. So late winter, early spring. And you can't do anything with the flower color on these. They're going to be white, green, then white, and then kind of brown. Climbing hydrangeas, these guys can grow really tall, obviously, up a tree trunk or on a side of a house or something like that. They're going to have white, kind of lacy flowers, and they can tolerate a little bit of sun, not as much as some of the other varieties, but you can grow that on the side of your house or whatever. Old wood on these, so no pruning after August 1st, and you're basically going to do that immediately after they're done blooming. Mountain hydrangeas, so 4 or 5 feet, 6 feet tall, kind of depending on the conditions of where they are. They are not as tolerant of high temperatures or sun exposure. So down here, unless you have a microclimate in and around the metro area or on south, probably not the best option, but up in the mountains, you can definitely do that. They can either be a lace cap or a mop head. And you can see there's a couple of varieties here. You've got the mop head above and the lace cap below. Flower color is affected by soil pH. So you can grow these further on up into the mid-south and they will do wood. They flower on old wood. So again, don't prune after August 1st. Most popular, we'll kind of dive into a few of those. Limelight. I believe this is now off patent, so you can actually propagate that. And it'll grow 6 to 8 feet tall, starts out kind of green, then turns to kind of a white and a pink. pH not affecting, blooms on new wood. Okay, so pruning in winter, early spring. Endless summer. This is a big one. I believe this is a Dr. Durr hydrangea, and it's going to grow 4 or 5 feet tall, good for containers. Large, beautiful blooms. It can be blue, lavender, pink, depending on how you manipulate your soil. And it's reblooming. So you can get some in the late, well, early summer, late spring, and then again in the fall. So just keep that in mind for the rules on when you should prune. Cold hardy, and again, like most hydrangeas, it's really going to prefer that afternoon shade. Annabelle, again, another very popular one, can grow up to about 5 feet tall, very large, showy white flowers, and it may need support. So if you've got it against a house, that'll give you a little bit of support. But if it's out in your yard, you may end up needing some type of support after a storm or something like that. It'll help prevent problems with that. It is a native plant, somewhat cold tolerant, and again, prefers afternoon shade. Blooms on new wood, so late fall or early winter into spring pruning. Dwarf panicles, Bobo, very short, 2 to 3 feet tall, so good for containers. If you're in a condo and you don't have a lot of room and you want to enjoy these beautiful plants, then you can get one of these and put it in a container on your back patio or your balcony. Provides slightly acidic soil, but again, the flower color is not dependent. New wood, so pruning in late winter, early spring. Prefers afternoon shade. Doesn't tolerate deep shade. There's not many of these that are going to tolerate that deep shade. So since it is fairly small, you can always pick it up and move it, put it on a roller. And if you've got a spot and it gets too much sun or too much shade, you can roll that thing around to where it gets the conditions that it needs. Little lime, also called Jane. This is a panicle hydrangea, 3 to 5 feet tall, also a very good container plant if you're growing it in a larger pot. And it's going to come up with these beautiful kind of greenish cone-shaped flowers that go everywhere from green to white to pink. So again, not pH dependent here, but still very pretty. And it blooms on new wood, so late winter pruning. Vanilla strawberry, this is a newer one, grows up to about 6 feet tall. Those blooms are going to change from white to kind of this strawberry reddish color. And each flower or each panicle is going to have some kind of color change in there. So they're not uniform in color. So very pretty. It needs a lot of sun. So if you have a lot of sun, 6 to 8 hours worth, it's pretty tolerant of that. So consider this one if you have more sun, if you're in a newer subdivision or your balcony, you've got a pad off the back of a townhouse or something like that, and it gets a lot of sun. This one is probably a good choice, and it'll bloom on new wood. Incredible, you can see a picture there. That guy or gal is holding that huge flower head. Look at that thing, it's gigantic. So the plant itself might be about 5 feet tall, but you've got this huge, what is that? Almost like a soccer ball sized bloom on there. Shade tolerant, but will produce better in full sun. good for woodland gardens, blooming on new wood. So late summer, sorry, I keep saying summer, late winter pruning. Flowers are going to stay that greenish to whitish color, so no pH. And once it's established, pretty drought tolerant and somewhat cold tolerant, so a good choice for the mountains. Quick fire, this is a panicle hydrangea up to about 8 feet, and it blooms a little bit earlier. It's going to turn this pretty kind of pinky color, rosy pinky color, and it has beautiful fall foliage. So that's a nice thing. You get some beautiful color on the flowers and you get some pretty fall foliage color. You can't change it through a change in pH, change the flower color. It doesn't work that way, but that's fine. It's still got other visual interest blooming on new wood. So you're going to prune that thing in late winter. Nico Blue, this is a big leaf hydrangea, looks very typical to that, grows about up to 6 feet, mop head, pretty large flower heads, grows best with morning sun. So this one needs a little bit more, 4 to 6 hours of sun. This is a pH dependent one, so you can change that color. For blue flowers, you're going to have a pH less than 6.5. So here we're fine. Anywhere in Georgia is pretty much the case. And then neutral soil 7, and you're going to have purple or pink flowers if you're going above that. And they bloom on old wood, so make sure no pruning after August 1st. Ruby slippers. My Ruby slippers store, I purchased one of these from a local nursery. I was all excited, and it was a regular oak leaf hydrangea. It was so sad. So I don't have a Ruby slippers. If anybody has one and they want to take a cutting and share that with me, I would be really happy because I still have not gotten a Ruby slippers. But these don't grow too terribly high, 3-4 foot, so a good container plant, and they're going to have a really pretty kind of orangey maroon color in the fall, other than that white greenish one that kind of shifts to looks like a paper bag, typical bloom for a oak leaf hydrangea. They bloom on old wood, so no pruning after August 1st. So we have a few minutes, not many, but here's some trivia. Oops. All right. Did you know? Yeah. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but they're native to Asia and North America. So Japan, China, that area over there. That's why they do so well over here, because a lot of those areas are zone 7, 8, just like we are here. So hydrangeas were imported into the EU, into Europe in 1775. They are not native to Europe. They do well over there, however, though, because they're more temperate than we are. So they're quite happy. They're very old. They date back 23 million years. There was actually a fossil found up in Alaska, and up to 66 million to 23 million years ago. Who knew? How about that? Something that isn't invasive to the US. The name hydrangea comes from the Greek word hydro, meaning water, and angion, meaning vessel. So they like water. Obviously, we all kind of knew that. And the little bit of interesting trivia, the Victorians believed that the color of their flowers had some meaning. So if you got a bouquet of pink hydrangeas, that meant I love you. And blue ones meant I'm sorry, I messed up. And it was a symbol of gratitude in that era. And also in China, also that it's a symbol of gratitude and abundance. So that's interesting. And that's basically it. So with that, hopefully we have a few questions. So I will take a look here, see what we have. Could you make a rooting ball with the plastic Easter eggs or egg cartons? You could probably try, I would say, with the plastic Easter eggs. If you had a bigger one, you probably could kind of snip out an area where the branch could go, and then put some potting medium or soil medium in there, and then snap that on there. Yeah, you could certainly try that if you want to. I think with an egg carton, that's probably a little too flimsy because it's going to be out in the elements for the better part of a growing season. and it's going to have to deal with wind and rain and all of that. So as long as you have a way to attach it and make sure it securely stays on there, I think you'll be fine. There are other ways of doing that. You know, people will put bindings around there and peat moss. They'll wrap some plastic around there. You can do that too. I just like the rooting balls because you can just reuse them. They're so simple. They're really cheap. And I think I bought a pack of 12 for $6. So super cheap. And they come in different sizes for different types of plants. So they're just really convenient to have. I love whoever came up with those. Discuss printing black stem hydrangeas. Not gonna lie here, I don't know what a black stem hydrangea is. I think I might have one, but it's a red stem. I'm not sure of any particular rules with regards to that. I would have to do a little bit of research. That's not something I'm familiar with. So I will make myself a note and I will look later. Black stem. And if somebody is on there and wants to look that up and put that on there, you are welcome to do that. But that is not one that I am familiar with. I have some of my favorites, and I'm not a hydrangea guru. I'm not going to lie there. But I do have a ton of oak leaf hydrangeas because I love them. They're very simple and easy to take care of. Do smooth hydrangeas like shade? So smooth hydrangeas are one of those that need some additional sunlight. All hydrangeas are going to need some sun. As I mentioned here in zone 8 and 9, we are now in Gwinnett County here at least. We're now in zone 8A. So 9 is down, like Macon area, all of that. You got to have more shade here than sun. If you are up in Tennessee and Kentucky and on up in there you can get away with full sun. Here, everything's going to have to have some shade, preferably afternoon shade, because the sun is much more intense down here. So every hydrangea really will do better if it's in afternoon shade, if that makes sense. But there are differing amounts of sunlight necessary for each type of plant. So I would say if you have a particular cultivar in mind, look it up, do some research on it, and find out how much sun is recommended for that particular cultivar. Will climbing hydrangeas damage structures or tree trunks? Kind of, yes, because they have aerial roots, and those aerial roots are going to kind of grow into whatever the substrate is, whether that be the bark of a tree or the brick of a house. So whatever it's growing onto, you're not going to want to remove it. I've seen it growing on houses. I've seen people put mesh netting, like metal mesh netting up over the top of their brick and allow it to grow through that. Then you don't have to worry about it growing into the brick itself. You see a lot of stuff over in the EU where it's growing up on the brick and it looks beautiful. I get it. It does look pretty, but those roots are growing into whatever that substrate is, and that can do damage. We have the same problem with English ivy. It'll grow into the bark of a tree. We tell people just cut it off at the base. It's going to wither and die. Don't pull it off. You'll pull that bark off and that can damage the tree. So yes. Can you plant hydrangeas in a pot? Yes, the smaller ones that get 3 to 4 feet, no more than that. Sure, some of them are 2 to 3 feet. You can put them in a pot. They're container plants and they're meant at that smaller size to be something that you can put into a pot. So yeah, if you have a townhome or you're in a condo or something like that and space is a minimum, look up some of those smaller cultivars that only get 2 to 3 feet tall, and definitely get those in a pot and plant them. Did I hear you correctly that hydrangeas are toxic? So the leaves, if ingested, have hydrangean, and yes, it can convert to hydrogen cyanide, which obviously cyanide is not good. So I can say my chickens have gotten into the leaves and they have eaten them and they have not died. Now, I would imagine over time, if you ate enough of them, then yes, you would have a problem. I will say, though, that a couple bites or something like that is not going to kill your animal. But having said that, exclude these plants from any farm animals chickens, cows, horses. Don't let your dogs munch on them. Don't let your cats munch on them, that kind of thing. Yes, it's not good for your animals. Are any of the hydrangeas good for pollinators? You know, I'll see them on the lace cap sometimes as the flowers are opening, but generally speaking, if you're thinking of putting some type of pollinator flowers in, there are other flowers that are probably going to be better than a selection of hydrangeas for the pollinator insects that are out there. So, you know, I put them in there because they're pretty, but you know, you can put some abelias or something else in, and those are going to be just coated in butterflies and bees, mountain mints, things like that. Plant a variety of things out there. You know, just figure out what works in your yard. Some of it's going to be pretty to look at. It doesn't always have to be pollinator perfect. Um, you know, put a little bit of everything out there. Sometimes it's just pleasing to the eye. Oh, thank you. Let's see. If you have time, can you talk about becoming a master gardener? Sure. So we're having the next class for master gardener class will start January 10th, 2025. So registration will open up here the first Friday in August, and it will run through the end of September. We will have a link to an application on our UGA Extension Gwinnett website. If you're interested in becoming a master gardener, it is basically an educated outreach volunteer. It's not about learning all sorts of interesting information, though we do teach you all sorts of interesting information. We teach you 50 hours of high school, college level information, anything from entomology, fruit trees, pruning, soil science, plant pathology. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that we teach you. It's once a week. It's on a Wednesday. It's from 9:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon. Half the class is at Gwinnett Tech in Lawrenceville. The other half of the class is over in Dunwoody at the Annex building, and that's right off of 285 because we split the class with DeKalb County. We'll have about 30 slots for Gwinnett County, and DeKalb County will also have about 30 slots. So if we have like 60 applicants, we have to kind of pare that down a little bit. We do have midterm and we do have a final, but don't panic about that. We help provide lots of assistance in study sessions and support for the students that are in the class. We answer all sorts of questions. And even if you're a horrible test taker, you can always do test corrections. We don't want you to not pass. So we just want you to learn the material. So you'll be fine. And if you're interested, you've got my email address there. Shoot me an email and I will put your name and your email into my little envelope and we'll have a volunteer send out that link once it's live. Let's see. I opted my first batch of hydrangeas this spring. It was easy. May try the balls. Yeah, great way to make more. What zone are we here in Lawrenceville? We are now in 8A. So I do tell people because half of Gwinnett is 7B and half is 8A. It's about the same. It's not going to change things a lot one way or the other. So I just tell people we're kind of in a transition zone since half the county is one and the half the county is the other. Just to figure you're both if you're looking up. Thank you, Ginger. I hate autocorrect. Rooted my first hydrangeas. Yay, Linda. Good. Root some more and share. Thanks for the class. Thank you, Hillary. Great information. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Hopefully everybody learned some good stuff about hydrangeas and you feel a little bit more comfortable about identifying which type you have so that you know whether you should prune in the fall or whether you should prune in the spring. Again, this particular program will be, I would say probably by Monday. I've got to go in and do some editing on them. So it'll probably be next week. And then you can take a look at that proven winners website. There's actually more information there other than just that little key. They have all sorts of other really good information on hydrangeas. Very easy to look at and read and figure all of that out. But yeah, I love hydrangeas, and I learned some good stuff from this myself. So other than just me not wanting to water them all the time. I like the ones that don't require a lot of care. So hopefully you guys will be able to go out there, and I'm not kidding. If anybody's got a ruby slippers and they're willing to do some propagation and split that, I would be really happy because I still want one. Peanut. No, don't panic over the leaf spots. They're okay. Just clean up after them. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to stop sharing, and that's it. So have a good dinner, and we'll see everybody next time. Thanks.